Betty and Paul started dating when they were still in high school. They both had explosive temperaments, and sometimes they wouldn't talk to each other for a week, waiting to see who would compromise. Paul was usually the first to come to make up. And now, on the eve of his draft into the army, they had argued again. Everything happened so quickly that they had no time to reconcile. Betty did not go to see him off, while Paul was desperately waiting for her before getting on the bus with the other conscripts. Betty cried for a day and then, unable to stand it, went to Paul's mother. Mrs. Williams was sorry for her son, so she even called Betty noxious. But then she felt pity for the girl, and she offered her tea with jam and spoke affectionately. Weeks and months passed. Betty and Paul often wrote to each other. Soon, the first year of service was over. Betty was already at university. The New Year's Eve party was noisy and fun. It was there that she met Vincent. He was 2 years older than her and very rich. He was also smart and well-read and a good dancer. She fell in love with him, and they started dating. Every time when Betty visited her hometown, she saw Paul's mother. Mrs. Williams missed her only son very much. She knew that her son thought of Betty as a future bride, and that was why she always invited Betty to her house for tea and heart-to-heart talks. Each time, Betty felt more and more uncomfortable. She had already had a serious relationship with Vincent in the city, and she did not know how to write to Paul that everything had changed, and she was no longer waiting for him. Soon, Vincent asked her to marry him, and she immediately agreed. The wedding was gorgeous, an expensive wedding dress, a necklace, and earrings with diamonds from the groom. A new cottage outside the city as a gift from her parents. Betty forgot all about Paul. When she arrived in her native city for the first time after the wedding, she was very confused when she saw Mrs. Williams. The woman, with great enthusiasm and joy, shared the news that Paul would return in 2 weeks. Mrs. Williams invited Betty for tea, as usual, but she ran away, citing a rush. When she returned home, she wrote a short letter to Paul, telling him that she had been married for several months and was very happy, because she finally really had fallen in love, and her feelings for Paul were just a frivolous, childish passion. They hadn't seen each other for 10 whole years, and then they met by chance at the mall. Paul, mature and happy, was walking beside a young, beautiful woman, gently supporting her under his elbow. She seemed to be in the last period of pregnancy, and next to them were 2 twin girls, about 8 years old, who looked a lot like Paul. He did not notice Betty, and most likely he would not have recognized her. She gained a lot of weight, and there was nothing left of her former beauty. Vincent turned out to be an avid gambler. Over the years, he lost all his money, and if Betty had not filed for divorce in due time, she would not have had even an apartment. She was never able to give birth because she had several miscarriages from constant stress. Betty visited her hometown very rarely. On her last visit, she bumped into Mrs. Williams. She recognized her failed daughter-in-law and thanked her from the bottom of her heart. "You know, Betty, if you hadn't abandoned my son then, he would never have been so happy. He got your letter just before he left the army. He was distressed because he loved you so much. It was a 3-day trip home from the camp, and he met a girl on the train whom he soon married. They had twin girls, and now they are expecting a son. Thank you, dear. I'm not offended at you. Besides, you found your happiness too, since you had left my son. Well, goodbye. The dough must have risen. I'm going to bake pies with jam. My granddaughters will come soon, and they love them very much." Narrated by Deidre Eby.